Alrighty. The format of tonight's meeting is to have a guest speaker share their experience, strength and hope on how Alcoholics Anonymous program of recovery is working in their lives for 15 to 20 minutes. Tonight we've asked Sanjay to share.
My name's Sanjay, I'm an alcoholic. It's good to be here and good to be asked to share. I have a sobriety date of January the 13th, 2005, and the person standing here today is not the person who came into the rooms on that date. And briefly of what it was like. So I grew up in an alcoholic family with an alcoholic father, and basically what I understand now is I just had the same disease that he had. I grew up with a lot of fear around that. I grew up with a lot of sense of separateness. I didn't belong. I had this huge ego at the same time. I was always irritable, restless as a child, and I made up stories, always lying and stuff like that, and I couldn't sit still. And I vowed I wouldn't become my dad, the physical and the emotional abuse that he used to do. And lo and behold, I was a teenager and I picked up. For me it was not only drink, it was other things and other activities, and in the late 80s there was also drugs and other things involved, and I was off and running, as it says in the big book. I had arrived. This was me creating my own kind of whatever it was. But I always remember going to those parties and clubs and places in London where, funny enough, I worked for a brewery, so that exacerbated my alcoholism. So I was invited to all these places, and I thought I'd arrived. But every time I drank or every time I used in those areas, in those situations, even in a crowd, I felt separate from it. I didn't feel like these other people. I didn't feel normal, and because I wanted to carry on. I wanted everyone to. I didn't let anybody in. And I created this character and these masks, and because I was full of fear. And I was selfish and self-centered. I couldn't see it at the time, but I was manipulative. And when the money ran out, I manipulated people to get money so I can, feed my alcoholism, my addiction. And that was very early on. So I knew I had an issue straight away. But I tried self-help books, I tried helplines, I tried running away, I tried doing other things and whatever. But this head wouldn't stop. And I suffer from a disease which I didn't know then, but I have a disease that I have no choice. I will pick up, given the time and date and place. I will pick up. I could stay off it for a few days or maybe a week or whatever and everything else, but I was always planning, So, and trying to show people a semblance of normality, but inside I was just a crumbling wreck, and I couldn't stop and I couldn't stay stopped, and that was a simple fact, and I reached my late 20s, and I was now crossed that line where, it was just sort of hanging in there, but now I'm into suicidal thoughts. So the drink and the drugs and everything I'm doing, all the activities, it's just not working, and I want to kill myself, I want to check out. So I'm sliding now, into my early 30s, and on January 13, 2005, at the age of 35, I entered a rehab. Because I wanted to commit suicide, and I went to a doctor, and he said, because I said, I'd self-diagnosed on the internet by then that I thought I had ADHD, and that's what it was. He said, no, you haven't. No, you haven't. And I'll write a letter for you. You're depressed, but you don't do the drugs, don't do the drink anymore. Don't. It was all the don'ts. And I used before and I used after. So I drank before and I drank after. And but he wrote a referral letter, and my ego. I was, funny enough, I was working, in inverted commas, but I had some health insurance, and I ended up in a rehab in North London. And this psychiatrist looked at me, and the first thing he said to me was, and he looked at the referral letter, he just went, I see a little boy. And as soon as he said those words, I broke down into tears. Because for the first time in my life, he didn't believe the bullshit. He didn't believe the masks. I used to put people at arm's length. He cut straight through to who I really was, and he then brought a therapist up who was in recovery and working there and everything else, and he told his story, and I got a little bit of identification for the first time in my life, another alcoholic talking to another one, and he said, look, I've got a 28-day treatment program for you, you need to come in here straight away. So I did, It took me a couple of weeks, I had one last big bender and everything else, over Christmas and New Year, and then I ended up in this rehab on January 13, 2005, which I take as my sobriety day. And there was no magic cure. The first thing they did on that Thursday night, I think, or a Friday night, was send me to a meeting. I sat at the back. Someone's speaking like I'm speaking now, of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today. And I got that bit of hope. Because this guy told his story, and I went, well, yeah, I'd do that. I feel like that. You know, and although, you know, he was completely different in every single way, and I wouldn't have had anything to do with him, I identified, you know, and I've got that sense of hope that I was in the right place. And these people had something that I wanted. They were smiling, you know, they seemed to be comfortable in their own skin, you know, and that's all I ever wanted. All I wanted was peace of mind. And so, you know, I got a sponsor from that group, you know, and we commenced the program of action. So we worked through that book. He told me to read Doctor's Opinion and Bill's story. He told me about step 1 and the powerlessness, and I had to find the power in step 2. In those early days, the power for me was just the group, you know, because that's all I could think of that was bigger than myself. I had struggled with religion and everything else, and when they told me this was a spiritual program, not a religious one, I could grasp that as well, because I didn't want anything to do with religion or anything else, or a God or whatever, you know, and I surrendered. And that's what it asked me to do in step 1, is completely surrender and, you know, and take the suggestions. They were suggestions, but I had nowhere else to go, because, as I said, I wanted to commit suicide. You know, the drink wasn't working anymore, and you know, I went through the steps 4 till 9 and did the action steps, you know, and did the inventory about my fears, my harms, the resentments I used to carry around people, institutions and places. And I freed myself, and what it was, I was just freeing myself to the channel of this spiritual program and the channel to God. You know, I choose now to call my higher power of God, you know, and 7.5 years later, a day at a time, that's what I do. But that's not, you know, not to say I'm perfect. You know, my life, you know, in my first year, all I did was 7, 8, 9 meetings a week. I became a secretary. I used to put out chairs because I was told to put out chairs. I was told to make the tea, you know. And from this selfish, self-centred little SHIT that I was, I had to turn around and start being of service, you know, and start helping other people, you know. And I could see clearly in my behaviour when I did that step 4 that I was selfish. I was full of ego, but had this chronic low self-worth and self-esteem. And I filled that hole with drink and drugs and other things. And here now was a power bigger than myself, you know, and the power bigger than myself was the people in these rooms, you know. And slowly but surely I just literally took it a day at a time. You know, and they told me, you know, the promises would come true, you know. And I came in, masses in debt, living on my own in North London, you know, wanting to kill myself. And here I was starting to put a life back together again. And for me what happened was, you know, I got into this program 110% really, and that's all I did. And I put recovery first, you know, and my higher power then put someone in my path. I was able now to try and do a relationship with somebody. For years I couldn't do that. You know, it talks about me in page 52 perfectly. I'm prey to misery and depression. I can't do personal relationships. I'm not useful to other people. You know, I'm full of fear. That's me sober. You know, so I need, you know, that's why I needed a drink. That's why I needed other things to fill that hole. So here I was now with a higher power and in AA and just working the steps and someone put someone in my path and cut a long story short, I was able to do a relationship and I arrived here in Australia because she was from Australia. I got married in 07, you know, and you know, and carried on the program here and you know, didn't really get a home group at the time because I was going to different kind of meetings, mostly the gallery in town and other places. And I lived in the West, but a couple of years ago I landed at the Deal, and the Deal was my home group on a Sunday night. You know, and I have a sponsor from there now. You know, because I had to do what I used to do at the beginning. You know, I could see myself floundering. The fact that I didn't have a sponsor, I was just calling my mates back in England for a while, and you know, I needed to get back and do the drill as I was told to do in the first place. You know, get a sponsor, get a home group, and be of service and work the steps. You know, and then once you get it, pass the message on to somebody else. You know, and that's the biggest bright spot in my life now. You know, like taking people through it, taking people through the work and showing them what I'd been through. You know, if you want it, you can have it. You know, and here it is, and it's all outlined. The black bits, as my sponsor says, in the white pages in the blue book. You know, and it's all there. You know, I sometimes think, is there another way? Is there a different way? There isn't. There isn't. I haven't seen it. You know, it's just all there. You know, and I subscribe to that. I subscribe to the fact that I've been given my life back through AA and through the Big Book and the 12 Steps. You know, and through a higher power. You know, and that's not to say I'm perfect. I have to do 10, 11, and 12 quite rigorously. You know, and you know, I have a lot of anger that still comes up occasionally. I have to pray about that, and I have to do my amends around that, and then step 10. And so now, lately, I've been really trying to emphasise the spiritual nature of this program, getting into sort of yoga and meditation, and sitting down and trying to be quiet with myself. And, you know, I heard a speaker share, Mark Houston, who's one of my guys that really sort of helped when I listened to him. He said, "How much time have you spent with God this week? Is it just a few minutes in the morning?" That really made me think, you know, and so literally I'm trying now to at least sit for 20 minutes a day in the morning before I start my day, you know, and try and calm my head down, because this noise, as I call it, my alcoholism is the noise in my head that it gets constant, you know, and the only time it sort of calmed down, I had the spiritual awakening of the Bill variety, you know, when I went home that evening when I did my step 5, I did 6 and 7, the noise in my head stopped, and that was my spiritual awakening, you know, and I'm forever grateful for it. I never looked back since, you know, and what I want to say is, if you're new around, you know, find yourself a sponsor who's probably got a sponsor, you know, work these steps, get a home group and be of service, and I'll leave it there. Thank you.